Okay, folks, so ISOM #1 is on its way to me. I unexpectedly picked it up from mycomicshop.com. Mycomicshop.com is a Texas comics retailer who is strictly all online business now. It used to be called Lone Star Comics, and they had about 8 different stores around the state. I used to frequent the one that was in Plano until it shut down, and then finally they just went strictly online, and I think that suited them very well when the pandemic hit. So I was not expecting them to actually get any copies of ISOM in, but Eric July has been partnering with various retailers around the country to send copies of covers A and B to these particular retailers, and it just so happens that my comic shop was one of them. So when I saw that, I was especially delighted because I had about $60 worth of store credit from comics that I had traded to them. So this was the week that Incredible Hulk Epic Collection #7 came out, and now the Wolverine. Fun fact for anyone who doesn't know, Wolverine originally appeared in the Incredible Hulk #180 and made a full appearance in 181 on the cover. So taking that and then adding on ISOM, I probably got about $70 worth of material for only $10 that I actually spent. The rest was in store credit for comics that I had traded into them before. So I was really, really happy to be able to get a copy of ISOM cover A, which was the cover I definitely wanted out of the 3. And it's on its way. It should be here by about Tuesday. So I just wanted to make a video just about my feelings of anticipation toward it, because this is the largest, most successful crowdfunded comic ever, with a $3.7 million haul. Just unbelievably positive reaction from the crowd out there who are desperate to see the creation of a new and sustainable comic book universe. Because what Eric July is proposing to do is not just have a single comic that he comes out with, but really to build a comic book universe that could be a rival even to Marvel and DC, but it would be done on a crowd-funded basis, and it would be a crowd-funded rival to the big 2 companies that may, go through the process of disrupting the entire comics business model. And, I didn't realize this before, but I was just thinking about Ed Brubaker and Sean Phillips, their series Reckless. If you know anything about that series, they're actually doing through the direct market what a lot of independent crowdfunded comics are doing through the crowdfunding platform, because Ed Brubaker and Sean Phillips' Reckless series is a series of approximately 96-page or more, I think more like 120-something page graphic novels that just come out like maybe one every 3 to 6 months. And they go in and do one of these books, and that's pretty much all you get for that period of time. But there's a lot of sustained interest in the book and in the series that makes it a perennial seller. So really, this could end up becoming the model for comics going forward. We might actually be seeing that shift that some have prophesied. That Ethan Van Sciver, for example, has been advising that maybe the comic book industry should just go to this model where you're putting out 96-page or 128-page books on a periodic basis, maybe on a quarterly basis, instead of trying to come out with a monthly issue that really doesn't take you much of anywhere. Although I will, especially where Ethan Van Sciver himself is concerned, I will kind of complain a little bit about a 96-page book that doesn't really take you all of the way. Because I know Cyberfrog Bloodhoney, which I did eventually purchase, along with its companion piece, The Diary of Heather Swain, that only gets you like a part of the way into the Cyberfrog story, and his next book, Cyberfrog 2, Wrecked Planet, is only going to get you a part of the way more into the story. You've got another Cyberfrog 3, Red Extermination. That's going to be the next book in the series, and I think it won't be until maybe the fourth book or the fifth book that you actually get into another story arc. So, you can't exactly say that 96 pages in a story is going to guarantee you freedom from the decompressed storylining that we've been suffering under ever since Brian Michael Bendis hit the scene with Ultimate Spider-Man #1, and it took him 5 issues to kill Uncle Ben. I'm like, dear God, let this man die. Decompressed storytelling is actually my main fear when it comes to ISOM #1. What I've heard, I've made it a point not to read reviews for ISOM #1, not to watch any reviews. I don't want to get any details spoiled for me, and I'm just basically trying to kick back and relax until the book is finally in my hands and I'm able to see it. There are 2 things about the book that are already making me a little bit anxious. I mean, I do say I want to have high expectations for the book just because of all the positive feedback that you see from Eric July's customers, where they're saying, oh yes, this is a great book, Problem is that I don't know how well I can trust their feedback, because I know that there's some segment of his reviewers who have never read a comic book in their lives before. This is the first time they have ever picked up a comic, and if they're going to tell me it's the greatest thing since sliced bread, well, hey, you don't exactly know any better. I mean, that's like saying that the hardtack you got on the pirate ship on the way over here was like, hey, this is great bread. It's like, no, you don't know what great bread is. That's just better than anything you've ever had. So I'm not really relying too much on the positive feedback that he's generated so far. I need to see this for myself with my own eyes. And the only thing that I've really seen of it was those 2 couple of panels that I referred to in my last video talking about, here's what I wish Comicsgate people would know, which is you need to put out lettered previews of your comics if you really want to generate even more interest in your books, because there are a lot of people out there who are not going to buy this stuff sight unseen concerning your writing style. So when I saw these 2 panels from the ISOM #1 comic book, and I'm looking at that and thinking, well, I'm not really down with the writing so far, but at least the ideas in the writing are something that appeal to me, where I want to see how this gets fleshed out in the book. And really hoping it does get fleshed out in the book, or else I'm going to be sorely disappointed. But the writing style left me a little bit cold and wondering, what am I going to see here? Because you see these 2 characters facing off against each other and having a conversation matched with their postures that it just doesn't seem like it really clicked, like the dialogue clicked with their stances and what they were doing. But I also know that I don't know enough about these characters to really say, oh yeah, that's what this character would say in that situation, that's what this character would do in that situation. I don't know these guys, but at least it intrigued me enough into wanting to get to know these guys to see whether or not the book was good. So that's one thing, but the only review that I heard that had any kind of substantive information about it was that what you were told you were going to get is what you get. In other words, the story blurb that Eric July put for his ISOM 1 campaign, where it talks about the main story, how this man, Avery, who was formerly the hero known as ISOM, retired from that business or withdrew from that business to just become a rancher, and then it gets pulled back into possibly the superheroing business when his sister says that a friend of the family has fallen in with one of his old friends and has gone missing, and now he's got to come in and investigate what goes on. And in the process of that, he runs into people who he has known before in the superheroing business and has strained relations with them for one reason or another, and comes into conflict with them sometimes in a physical way. That's basically the story that we were given, and the one review that led me to kind of lower my expectations of the book is that he says that's the story you get. And that's a little bit disheartening, because one of the things about one of the things about a good book or a good movie is that if if you can sum it up in a blurb and sell it in the blurb, and then people go to actually see it or read it or whatever, and all they come away with is exactly that same blurb, did they really need to even see the movie? Did they really even need to read the book? Because how you presented it, how you told the story, what kind of story did you actually convey from this blurb onto the actual presentation? That is what matters. That is what, and maybe people are just being reticent because they don't want to spoil details themselves of the book, which is totally honorable, and I understand that. But I don't see a lot of people out there coming away and saying, oh, I love the fact that, this was handled in this particular way, or, the kind of stuff that I would definitely want to avert my eyes from until I've actually read the book. But at the same time, the kind of stuff that would let me think, oh, there is a depth to this book. There are deeper levels to this book than what the story blurb at the top says. If what you see in the story blurb is really all that you get, I'm going to be kind of disappointed in this. Now, my whole hope was that the flickers of ideas that I saw in the dialogue balloons of the two panels that I saw from the book shows that those deeper levels do exist. And so that's what I'm hoping for. I'm hoping for something that, even if it's not perfectly polished on the surface, that the ideas contained therein will make it into something that is interesting to read nevertheless. Something that will make you think about the book after you're done reading the book. It's kind of like, and I made this analogy online, it's not a perfect analogy, but the Star Wars prequels, right? You've got The Phantom Menace, you've got Attack of the Clones, and you've got Revenge of the Sith. Now, which of those three are the best? Well, I think we all know that the worst was Attack of the Clones. That movie was horrible. But of the two movies, The Phantom Menace and Revenge of the Sith, which of those was the better movies? Now, I think that neither of those movies is terribly good. But the thing about Revenge of the Sith that I felt made it superior to The Phantom Menace was the fact that Revenge of the Sith contained a lot of ideas lurking under the surface that made you think about those ideas, even if you just discarded the shell of the movie, which often was worthless. I really did not care much for the scripting, for the acting, for the plot. There wasn't really a whole hell of a lot of Revenge of the Sith that I actually liked from a production standpoint. But from an idea standpoint, when you think about, okay, you've got one side using droids to fight their fights, you got another side using clones. Are either of these sides even better than the other? I mean, or are you just dealing with people who are using people in some way, shape, or form? The other thoughts of, how much will you be willing to lose, or what will you be willing to do to keep what you have instead of being willing to let go of things? How much of a danger can attachment be? Things like that, those kinds of ideas that resonate throughout Revenge of the Sith is what makes it a superior movie to the other two prequels. Whereas if I were just talking about, like story production or things like that, I would probably go with The Phantom Menace just for the fact that it is a complete story in and of itself. And by the way, I mean, people kind of rag on Jake Lloyd for his performance in The Phantom Menace. I mean, he played the young Anakin Skywalker. Kid did nothing wrong. That kid was really literally everything he needed to be for that movie. And I feel really terrible about the fact that, he wound up suffering some mental health issues later in life. I think he wound up getting a touch of schizophrenia and wound up with some legal issues on that. I really hope he's getting the help we need, because we really owe him a debt for being able to ably play this Anakin Skywalker kid and really pull it off in a way that was perfectly believable enough. I mean, certainly you don't want a 10-year-old showing signs of evil in him, and he never did. And he was an excellent child actor, and I kind of wish that he had managed to pull out a better career arc for himself than unfortunately seems to have been the case. And honestly, the same goes for Hayden Christensen, although I'm not going to say that his acting was like stellar or anything, but honestly, God, it should have been Jake Gyllenhaal. I found out that Jake Gyllenhaal and Hayden Christensen are the same age. And interestingly enough, Hayden Christensen and Jake Gyllenhaal just recently worked together in a play. I was surprised to see that. But yeah, they're the same age. And I just wondered, did anybody ever ask Jake Gyllenhaal if he was interested in the role of Anakin Skywalker, or did he ever apply for the role of Anakin Skywalker? I've never seen that. I've never seen anything detailing who actually applied for the role of Anakin Skywalker and who was rejected for it. I know Leonardo DiCaprio was the first pick that George Lucas had, but I think Leonardo DiCaprio just didn't want to get wrapped up in the whole Star Wars thing. He was really wanting to go make more of a name for himself as opposed to get subsumed within the whole Star Wars mythology. So that turned out to be, really good for Hayden Christensen. But I'm curious to know, and maybe somebody can point me to a video out there of where, maybe the story of how he got the role. And here's the thing: is I can't fault any of the actors in Star Wars, in the Star Wars prequels, for the performances that they turned in, because those scripts were so damn miserable that you can forgive them for anything. There was practically nothing for them to latch onto. Now, hats off to Liam Neeson for being the perfect Jedi. I mean, I've never seen a better Jedi portrayal than Qui-Gon Jinn. Just absolutely amazing, floors me. But as far as the rest of the characters go, I think Ewan McGregor did an interesting job of showing Obi-Wan in his arc as being a Padawan starting out, and then a Jedi Master, and then the general of a Jedi general during the Clone Wars. I think he did an admirable job of showing that progression in his character. And I feel terrible for Natalie Portman for being reduced in her character from being a senator in the Republic and then just constantly getting reduced more and more to being weepy pregnant woman who gives up on life. I have never seen, for all of how people talk about Princess Leia as being a feminist icon, her mother was like the anti-feminist icon. She just went from being this calm, cool, collected, in possession of her all her faculties and on top of everything, just to being this absolute weepy wretch by the end of the trilogy. And I'm just like, he didn't just suck the life out of her, he sucked the character out of her. And I feel so bad for her that her character had to go through that kind of arc. And again, as for Hayden Christensen, it's hard to blame him for the performance he turned in, given what he had to work with. Those scripts were just awful. Just the fact that I would love to know how much of the scripts were improv, if anything. And maybe somebody can point me to a video on that. I mean, was the stuff about sand, was that improv, or was he actually required to say that as part of the script? The scene where, she's coming, they're being delivered out to die, and she says, "I truly, deeply love you." I mean, was that actually the script, or, was that just horrible improv on her part? Having seen Thor: Love and Thunder, I'm thinking to myself, oh, she's way better than this. And by the way, Natalie Portman's career her acting ability was proved out all the way back to Leon the Professional, which was an amazing movie. Definitely go see that if you've never seen that before. It's a just absolute stellar movie. Somehow this became a raving rant about Star Wars and stuff, so I'm just going to clip it off here. I just wanted to kind of talk about how I was feeling knowing that ISOM #1 was on the way, because I do have really mixed expectations for it. There's part of me that really wants it to be good, and I fear that part of me most of all, because I've found that the movies that I had the lowest expectations for, the movies where I just said, just put something up on the screen that's gonna entertain me for a couple of hours, and I don't have to care about anything else. Just do that for me. Those are the movies I actually wound up liking best. Case in point, the original Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movie. When I went to see that movie, I had seen so much of the special effects done for that movie, so much of the previews that had come out for that movie. I felt like I knew the movie inside and out by the time I saw it. So when I actually went to see the movie, I thought to myself, I don't even care what happens. I've practically seen this movie already. Just show me, just entertain me for 2 hours. And that movie was fantastic. That movie had so much depth to it that even though I had seen so much of the surface layer stuff, everything that the actors and the special effects brought to the table on top of that was wonderful. Just wonderful. And Spider-Man 2, by the way, still remains my pick for the best superhero movie of all time. Of all time, that includes Dark Knight, that includes Avengers Endgame, and all the other movies. All-time best superhero movie is Spider-Man 2. And the other movie, which I know there's going to be a lot of disagreement with me about, but hear me out. When I went to see Star Wars Episode 8, The Last Jedi, my expectations for the franchise had cratered so low. I swear all I wanted to see was some movie that would connect Episode 7 with Episode 9. Didn't have any requirements, didn't have any expectations over that. I had no idea how good that movie was going to be. That movie, seriously, today stands with me as the best of all the Star Wars movies ever. It's a Star Wars movie that was made for adults, which I appreciate so much. And it's not without its flaws. I mean, there's a couple of big glaring flaws in the movie. But if you overlook those couple of flaws, then you wind up with this just unimaginably rich movie that takes every single Star Wars trope from Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi and just turns it completely on its head. It takes everything that you are expecting to happen and makes it into exactly the opposite. And it's beautiful for having done that. And there's so many fans out there who are just like, no, I just wanted to see the same stuff over again, which is basically really what they were asking for. They wanted to see the same tropes repeated. They wanted to see just a total retread of all of the Star Wars ideas instead of somebody who could just work magic and respect all that had come before, and yet at the same time say, I'm not going to make these characters and I'm not going to make the mythology into what you thought it was supposed to be. I'm going to take all this stuff, turn it on its head, and hand it back to you in such a way that you can go literally anywhere from here. You can go literally anywhere you want from here. It is going to be so open-ended that you can make anything you want out of this. And what the hell did J.J. Abrams and the Rise of Skywalker people do? They went and they just tried to make Return of the Jedi all over again. It was in the Rise of Skywalker. It was such a freaking disappointment. Okay, end of rant. I'm going to be done for today. Thanks for listening. I'm Mike Partika. Please do subscribe if you haven't already. And I will definitely let you know my thoughts on ISOM number 1 when I get that baby in my hot little hands and have time to sit down and give it a good cursory reading. I hope that I'm able to really manage my expectations and my excitement about the book so that I don't let that color my impression of it, saying, oh, I really want this to be good, and then it not be what I expect. I need to get into that Zen position where I can just, accept what it is that's been handed to me and evaluate it on its own terms. So that's the mindset I'm going for. Hopefully I'll have achieved it by the time I get the book in hand. Thanks for listening. Hope this wasn't too long of a rant for you. I'm Mike Partika. Do subscribe, and I'll talk to you later.